Welcome back to another edition of the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Safey here with former Michigan basketball player Ant Wright, our analyst here on 3 high school basketball, college basketball. You can find him on Twitter at It's Ant Wright. He's all over the place doing his live streams as well for the Michigan games, some other games where he's given his live reaction. So definitely worth the follow there. I'm sure, Ant, and we were talking before we went live here that last night, pretty fun one for you and for all the people watching there. Michigan with a blowout win over number 3 Purdue, 82-58. Not many saw that one coming, especially on a quick turnaround after an ugly win over Penn State on Tuesday night, but the Wolverines get it done. Let's talk about that game, and we'll talk about Michigan's resume because it obviously was massive for that. They jumped up 17 spots in the net. They moved up 20 spots in KenPom. But in terms of this game specifically, to me, the most surprising part was you held the number 1 offense in the country to 58 points, to their lowest points per possession in 13 months. So we're talking about a stellar defensive performance from a team that hasn't been good on defense all season. They've been actually really bad, and they were regressing coming into this game. It felt like to me. Would you see, starting on the defensive side of the ball from Michigan, what they were able to do? Because it was pretty impressive. They mixed in the zone, which actually worked this time. The press worked as well. What did you see from the Wolverines on defense?
Well, they did a much better job handling Ivy. I think Ivy still got kind of like what he gets to.
Took him 12
times.
shots to get 16, I think, is what it was.
But the 5 turnovers.
Yeah.
And when you are a Purdue team who struggles with creation, like they're very, very good. Very, very good team. But their only guy who could do any creating right now is Jaden Ivey. And when he's not able to get in the paint at will, get downhill, that's kind of been their Achilles heel this year is their point guard play. Not being able to handle the ball in tough situations, operate in the pick and roll. And Michigan did a really good job on their shooters, closing out hard, forcing shots from like 25, 26 feet rather than 23, 24. Like that matters, being a foot or two further. You have a different trajectory and shot strength and all that, and you're a little bit off rhythm. Did a really good job there. They did a good job with, with just mainly their shooters because Trevion kind of got what he wanted, which, he's a very good player. Edey, same deal. But they held Sasha Stefanovic in check for the most part. They didn't let Mason Gillis go off for 2, 3, 4 threes. And that helps. And they had a couple of really good runs. I think that the way that they started the game and the way they started the second half really separated the game for them. Going up 9 at halftime, and then I had a halftime green room and all that, and I'm like, hey, look, the team who goes +5 next is going to feel really, really good. So who's gonna be 15-10 in when it comes to halftime? When it comes to the second half, who's going to be 10-5? Who's going to be 12-7? And that was Michigan. They jumped out to 14, 15 points. And then you could start to feel that they felt like, okay, this is happening, but we're just going to play and have fun. And then you saw them get to 20 for another +5, +6. And that's where you're like, okay, this is game. Let's just finish the game outright. But the way that they got to their shooters was very impressive, was very, very impressive. And they were able to get Jaden Ivey uncomfortable by cutting his right hand off as much as they could in the second half. And that's so hard to do because he's so fast and he's so strong.
No doubt. And when you speak of those runs that they went on in the second half, like I was thinking up 9, and I was thinking at half as well, like this is a dangerously, like it looks like a really, really good lead. And obviously you would much rather be up 9 than just about anything else against Purdue. That's damn tough to do. I don't think they trailed by that many at half against any team this season. Only 3 losses coming in. But I was like, man,
they didn't score for 6 minutes in the first half. and
Yep.
Michigan only had like a 7-point lead. I'm like, oh my goodness, no,
Exactly.
no, 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 no. I'm like, man, like that was it. I felt that was it. I felt that was their opportunity, and they're gonna have to be in a dogfight from there on. But they kept their foot on their throat and just slowly squeezed the life out of them throughout the entire game. It was nice
Yeah.
to see.
No, absolutely. And that's what it was like every time Michigan was due for one of those dry spells and those scoring droughts that they've had all season long, it felt like a guy like Eli Brooks hit a three, or Caleb Houston cashed in on a three, or Musa Diabate had a nice roll to the rim, and he was diving great, towards the rim. He had the sweet lefty dunk, that was just perfectly placed there with their defenders. I mean,
That was
Michigan,
also nice. That was also nice. Like
yeah,
you just mentioned three names without mentioning Hunter.
right.
Like
That's a great
usually
point.
it's
Yeah.
Hunter having to bail him out. Oh, Hunter had to do this. Hunter had to do that. The fact that guys really stepped up tonight and tonight, well, like last night, but they had like Devontae getting to the paint, really getting to the house of the defense and getting guys turning around, and he's picking them apart with good passes, then guys are just making shots. And it's not just Hunter, it was everybody. And I think that was the difference because Purdue didn't have one guy that they had to shut down. They had to shut the faucet off on everybody. And that's just hard to do in college.
No doubt. And Michigan hasn't had many nights like that. Like we've been talking about all season, like we need a third scorer for them to show up for this offense. And it's been a good offense for the most part, but it's been inconsistent. But you don't have that third guy night in, night out. Well, this time you had five. All five starters were in double figures. All five starters made over 4 field goals. Devontae Jones was fantastic with 10 assists to 2 turnovers. Like you mentioned, like he was getting in the paint. He just felt like he was just under control. Like some of those like passes with the zip he had on it, and knowing where a guy was on the other side of the floor without even looking at him, and then turning and whipping it over there. It kind of reminded me almost of Xavier Simpson at his best running that ball screen. It was the best he's been, in my opinion, all season long on the offensive side. He played good defense as well. And then, I mean, Eli, 8-0 run, or not 8-0 run, but an 8-2 run, 8 straight points for Michigan in the second half. Having him do that, even though he's been inconsistent as well, I think it was massive. As you mentioned, I mean, Hunter was still good, and he hit 4 threes. And I wanted to ask you about this because Musa Diabate said something really interesting in the postgame where, playing their big men 5 days ago, like that quick turnaround, everyone was like, oh, God, they got to play Purdue twice in 5 days. But Musa said that was actually an advantage because you could kind of feel them out. You understand what it's like to play a guy like Zach Edey at 7'4" and Travion Williams, who's so skilled at 6'11", and then to turn around and do that again. It's not easy still the second time, but they kind of had a feel. They knew what they could do. Like they knew what shots they could get, what shots were going to get blocked. From your experience as a player, I guess, how important is that? And maybe is that something we overlooked coming into this stretch that actually might be advantage? Like, hey, we were able to see what they can do, and now we can make our adjustments and go attack them.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw that the 2 games were going to be within 5 days, I'm like, this is a great opportunity to split. Because you do have that familiarity with the team. It doesn't matter how good they are. And I said this a couple days ago. I was like, look, last year I remember Oakland. I believe they played Wright State. Oakland beat Wright State by 40, like 40 or 45 points. But because of the whole COVID thing, they were playing the following day too. Beat them by 40 or 45. The next day they lost by 10. Like, how does that happen? You know what I mean? And because of because of two things. Two things. One, you just played them 5 days ago, was one. Two, you both had games in between. Three, Purdue that was a highly emotional game for them to beat Illinois. Because that was, you're talking like, hey, this is going to be for first place. They beat them by what, like 15, 16?
Yep, handled them. Yep.
Yeah. And then, lastly, Purdue beat Michigan in a 2-possession game at home. What was Purdue talking about changing in a win, even though it was close, right? Michigan came in, they just they were right there. They were down 4 with the ball, right? And they made a turnover and got it to 6, and then they turned it over again, and then they just couldn't really break that bubble, right? So you're in a game where like Michigan was in pretty much the entire game despite 2 pretty decent Purdue runs, and Michigan was the team making all the adjustments. And Purdue only had 1 day prep. And that 1 day prep, they also had to travel to Ann Arbor. So I'm not sure if they came in day of or they came in the, like in between the Illinois and Michigan game, but that's a lot going on for them.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
and so when you look at it like that, it's like, Michigan should have split the game. But that's not going to show up on the net like, oh well, they had all these, with context, like no. They just beat the number 3 team in the country by what, 24 points? Like it was an absolute blowout. So you take that and you run with it and you enjoy it and then just move on.
And before we move on to talking about the resume as a whole, because obviously, I was looking at T-Rank, Bart Torvik's website. Coming into this game, they were under 50% chance to make the NCAA tournament. Now they're at 70.5. So we'll talk about that in a second. 2 things real quick that I wanted to ask you about before we get to that was, one, Juwan Howard saying they got back at 3 a.m. after the Penn State game on early, that's early Wednesday morning before this Thursday game. He polled his players in their film session the next day and the staff and said, how many hours of sleep did you get last night? On average, it was 4. Did you ever have any sort of quick turnarounds like that where it's like, man, how could we possibly play? But somehow you're able to get that energy going. And then also that just reminded me of the John Beilein, what was it, 14 or 15 year when he was like, man, Spike's got class in the morning, and he was just complaining about the late tips. I mean, those can be brutal, but it's just so perfect that it was Spike that had class the next day.
That's so him. That's so him. I remember we were stuck and I believe we had come back. We were losing to Indiana at Assembly Hall by like 21 here. And then we came back and won the game in like overtime or something. And it was late. It was super late. It was like dead of winter. And our plane was like messed up. And so we were in Indiana till like 2-3 in the morning. And we didn't get back to like, we didn't get back till, it had to have been like 4 at the earliest. And I had 8 a.m. the next morning. And I have class checkers. So it's like, I'm like, okay, do I get some more rest or do I run a bunch of sprints at practice? And the sprint series that JB had was not worth it. So, I got like 2 great 5-hour energies, pumped those down, and I was out of there. I was gone.
That's great. So, I mean, obviously, it's a thing in college basketball. You and Spike have to get to class. So, that's – and Juwan mentioned that too, that, the guys have class the next day. The second thing I wanted to ask you about real quick is the court storming, which has been – there's a lot of people complaining about that they stormed the court. This should be expected at Michigan. You were a preseason top 10 team. I know you had your little freestyle rap that you did that I watched this morning, so check that out for the people on his Twitter. But, I thought it was like, hey, there wasn't a great crowd in terms of attendance.
It was not. It was, man.
Yeah.
I said something in the first half, and I was like, yo, like, that's really disappointing.
It was really disappointing. There wasn't many there, but I will give the students that were there credit from the jump. And obviously they had a lot to cheer about, but they were really energized. They were fired up. The older crowd, in the rest of the bowl, especially the lower bowl, like they only stood up a few times and really, let them have it. But I'll give the students that were there a lot of credit. So I was like, hey, if they want to storm the court, storm the court. It hasn't been a great year so far. It's a top 5 win. Those don't come very often. First one in Juwan Howard's tenure, despite having a lot of success already so far. So where do you stand on the whole thing? And I think you had a great point where it's like it's not that deep. It doesn't really matter that much.
It's like I was
nothing to get angry about.
Like I was freestyling with my stream people. Like there was like 100, 150 in there, and we always have fun in there, right? And so like for some reason I have to use like a separate app for ESPN because like they like block the stream and all. So I have to like use like a separate app. When I use that separate app, there's like no game sound. So I've been playing Lakey Inspired. If you don't know who that is, instrumental god, like love his stuff. So I'm playing his stuff just throughout the whole stream, and then I'm talking to people, or we're vibing, and then the game ends, and then I just bust it out in a rap, and then next thing I know, I see them storming the court, and then I just started rapping about that, so I was having fun with that. Now, when it comes to storming the court itself, here's what I'll say. I think that give it some context. These kids have been cooped up for a long, long time. They haven't been able to really experience college the same way as kids had just 4 years prior or 3 years prior. They were able to have 4 years of fun, 4 years of just doing whatever they wanted without any type of consequence or repercussion. They're not worried about this or that. But these kids, they've had to deal with a lot of stuff, and especially if these are like juniors and seniors who have had their college experience ripped away from them. Hey, I am all for it. I'm all for it. I don't mind that at all. Now, from a program standpoint, Michigan is a top 10 program, and they've been a top 10 program for me in the last 10 years, right? And storming the court is almost like, hey, you should be above this. You wouldn't see Michigan State storming the court, you wouldn't see Duke storming the court, you wouldn't see Kansas storming the court, you won't see North Carolina storming the court, and you know what I mean? So I get it from that standpoint too, and it's almost like, as of now, giving it context, it's like not really a big deal for me. It's like it's not something that I'm gonna just like complain about. Now, if you're on Twitter just going off and complaining, tweet after tweet after tweet, you need to relax, like calm down a bit. But all I had was a freestyle, and I was just rapping about it. And of course, people are like, what was your reaction to the court storm? I was like, okay, here was my reaction to it. Here's what I did. I busted out a rap, and they did it, and I freestyled over it. It's whatever. I had fun. They had fun. It's a win-win.
No, I agree. I had no problem with it. I see both sides of it 1,000% in terms of the program perception and all of that. And Michigan is a great program. They were supposed to be as good or actually better, picked to win the Big Ten than Purdue. So I see it from that aspect as well. But I thought it was cool to see the fans that were there, especially that actually was kind of a defining factor for me. Was like, I was disappointed to start the game at just how many people were there. And even the students in the upper deck for bigger games, they're usually on their feet. There wasn't even enough of them to do that, so they were all sitting down. So it's like, if you're going to go, I guess, it's more like shove it in the face of the fans that didn't go. It's like, we're going to have some fun. We're going to do something here. So that's kind of where I stood on it. We're going to take a quick break and talk about our favorite sponsor, Manscaped, before we move on and get to Ohio State and Michigan's resume. But, Ant, a little poem that we have here. Roses are red, violets are blue. Don't let a wild pube wreck you. Valentine's Day is just around the corner. Our sponsors at Manscaped are here for you with the best tools to get your balls ready for the special occasion. Well, it's coming up in just 3 days, right? So V-Day, it's time to join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. We have our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code 20GoBlue for 20% off and free shipping. They just sent us the number one product in all of men's grooming, which is the Lawnmower 4.0, an electric trimmer designed to trim hair on loose skin. And it's just great technology. They also sent us the shampoo. They sent us T-shirts, all that. And we're going to get I'm going to get your address after this. We'll get them sent over to you as well because they take care of everybody here at the Wolverine. But, what do you think so far on just how I did on that ad read? We got Valentine's Day coming up. Manscaped, a great sponsor.
Elite job. Elite work.
There you go. So 20GO BLUE is the promo code there. Go and do that right now. As we mentioned, Michigan, their NCAA tournament chances skyrocket after this game, but there's still plenty of work to do. For me, nothing's changed in terms of that number of wins they need in the Big Ten, and I still have that at 11. I think if you get there in the Big Ten tournament, that could probably be enough as well. But to be safe, I think you want to go 11-9 in conference. Now they're 7-5. Super tough road ahead. You still have like one easy game, quote unquote, against Rutgers, a team you already lost to. But other than that, it's going to be tough.
Who's also hungry to get back on the bubble.
Yes, so that's a great point as well. And they just beat Ohio State. Ohio State coming in on Saturday. Then you go at Iowa, at Wisconsin. It doesn't get easier from here, but to get this one under your belt gives you a little bit of not a cushion, but a boost in terms of your resume. Like you're at 7 already with a top 5 win. Massive, as we mentioned. They jump up in the net. They jump up in Ken Pom. And now this looks like a team that has potential, not to compete for the Big Ten or anything like that, although Eli Brooks said, he's not conceding that, which I liked that comment from him, even if it's not realistic. But to be a team that could earn a bid. What's that?
2.5 games back.
I know it's true.
All you need is Purdue to lose again, and need to beat Wisconsin. What, both times? Do they play once or twice?
I want to say twice.
And then you got Illinois. You got to beat them. But I mean, they're only 2.5 games back, and it is kind of still right there. It's kind of still right there.
Wisconsin once. My bet on that.
Wisconsin once.
So here's the schedule: Ohio State at home, at Iowa, at Wisconsin, Rutgers at home, Illinois at home, Michigan State at home, Iowa at home, Ohio State on the road to close out the regular season. So
it's still tough. I mean, you're talking about 7 quad 1 games out of 8, and your 8th is a team who's pretty much you guys are in the same plane right now. I mean, they I said over the last 10 regular season games, at minimum, they need to go 6-4. 6-4, and then they would need to get, I believe, 2 wins in the Big Ten tournament to feel good about things. I think that'll put them at like 19-14 or 19-15, which I think would get them into the NCAA tournament. Getting the Purdue win was huge. Getting the Penn State win was also huge because you couldn't lose that game. You could lose that game, and you get the most difficult game in that 10-game stretch. You win that game, and then now you just need to find 4 more. You beat Rutgers, find 3 more quad 1s. With the way that your schedule has worked, where
that's
you don't
enough.
have
I think that's going to be enough. Yeah,
that should be enough. So just find your 3 quad 1s, and then don't lose to Rutgers. And I think you'll be back in the driver's seat, because look around the country, man. Like, other schools don't really have this luxury of playing this many quad 1 games to finish out, because the ACC's has been tripping. Like, they're a bunch of quad 2 and quad 3 teams in there. Not everybody plays Duke twice. A lot of teams play Duke once, and that's really the only top 7 lock. Miami should be in there. Man, UNC is now back on the bubble. As crazy as that sounds. Even though UNC blasted Michigan, which is like wild how the metrics work with all that, but it is what it is at this point. But they're playing good basketball at the right time. They cannot have they could not have a letdown game just because you beat Purdue. I think Purdue had a letdown game against Michigan after beating Illinois. Michigan can't go into this game with they have to handle success. And I think that's something that this team hasn't really had to do this year is handle success. This is their first ranked win, top 5, but this is their first ranked win this year. They have to be able to take that win, throw it away, regroup, and come back ready and still focused coming into Ohio State, where not coming into a game against Ohio State in Chrysler, but this is they have to deal with success here because Ohio State had the ball up 8 against Rutgers with 3:30 left in that game. And they let Rutgers close it out with the 10-0 run. They're feeling that. And they're going to bring that to the game. Michigan just celebrated a huge win. And they're on cloud 9. What is their mentality going to be in that game? This is ripe for Ohio State to win based off of those context cues. But this is going to tell you a lot about Michigan if they come out and win this game too. This game is going to tell me so much about where this team is mentally. Were they, I'm not going to say resting on their laurels, but were they did they go, did they exhale after the Purdue game, or are they no, we need to refocus and relock in. We have an All-American first-round pick coming in here again this Saturday who we need to take care of.
Yeah. No, I think those are great points. And you're right about Purdue. It did feel like that classic game. There's something about the Big Ten where when you have a big win, you're pretty ripe for the picking the next game. And then when you have a big loss or you blow a game, you're pissed off. Or if Michigan's case, you played Purdue 5 days ago, you're gunning for them. Purdue was thinking about Illinois, and then yesterday or 2 days ago, the day before they played Michigan, they were probably still thinking about the Illinois win. So it's just the way it goes in the Big Ten, probably more so than any other conference I've seen in college basketball, because every game's a rivalry almost, and you have that history with each other. It's just that's what makes it so fun, in my opinion, too. When you talk about Michigan having a letdown, though, I'm worried about also a physical letdown. You've had Hunter Dickinson was working through something last night. He
right lower leg.
Something it looked like maybe a groin. Anthony Broom and I were trying to play doctor from the cheap seats up there, and they stick us at the prep.
It was it looked like around his IT band. Do you know where your IT is?
No.
So
I'm not a doctor.
Sorry. So it's where your knee down the side of your leg to your outside ankle, there's a band right there.
Okay.
And he was holding that, around there for the most part. So I'm not sure what was going on with them, and that's why it's so imperative. If they could just get through this game, they have 4 days.
Yeah, I think 5. Yeah, because you go Saturday to Thursday at Iowa, and so that's going to be big. But I wrote this after the game against Penn State, even without knowing that Hunter was working through something. And now thinking back, I remember the camera shots of him on that little bike on the sideline, even against Penn State. So maybe it's something that's kind of lingering for him because he was doing the same thing last night. And I remember the only guy that really does that over the last couple of years was Isaiah Livers, just about every time he would come out. But I was thinking, man,
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do the bike because I get too tired. This is not keeping me warm.
Right. It's you got to work out. You got to work out while you're taking a break from working out, basically.
Exactly.
So, yeah. No, but I wrote after the Penn State game that by Saturday night we'll see what Hunter Dickinson looks like because he's had to play over 35 minutes in these games. He has had to carry the load. Now, he got more help last night, but he still was working his ass off out there. So, not only him, but all these other guys, all the starters played over, I think, 34 minutes last night it was. So these guys are going to be tired. It's something at a certain point, it's not mental anymore, and it's just something
The
physical.
bench has got to step up. The bench
Yes,
has got to step
but
up.
they haven't.
They have not
Even
stepped
last
up.
night, 2 points from the bench. I think it was
2
six the
points,
other
and
night.
we know exactly which 2 points it was. It was that crazy pass from Hunter off the rebound to Brandon Johns,
Yep,
and Brandon dunked it. Those were the only 2 points.
it's crazy.
Those were the only 2 points. The bench hasn't really. Um they they need to add something, and I think it's going to be up to T. Will and Brandon, in my
Yes,
opinion. Um, Frankie Frankie needs to, within 6 feet, he needs to just start going up. I'm not saying dunk the ball, but you need to go up and jump as high as you can. He's crazy
he draws
athletic.
fouls a lot when he does
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah. Hey, use your
he can't
body
shoot at the free throw line, but
or outside the paint. We get that. Not yet, right? He'll get there. But
not
like
dogging
no
him,
more
not dogging him.
threes,
Yeah.
like no more threes, no more jumpers. Get to the paint, use your athleticism, and create, share the ball where you're at the rim, like not doing the little scoop stuff. Like look, you're an athlete. Like use the gifts that you've been given. Kobe,
He's got to
you
hit his
know,
open threes. He gets 2 a game, and
yeah, he gets and the first one, like, it sailed. He's got to be ready. He's got to be ready to shoot the ball and make the ball. Um, and he's pretty long and athletic. Like, when you're driving, drive for a purpose. Don't drive just to, like, thinking that's what you should do. And that's why I'm like back to Brandon Johns and T. Will. Like, those are guys who we've seen score in double digits. They had the big game against Indiana, which I think they were a huge reason why Michigan won that game.
absolutely.
Because when they came in, level of play like went up. That needs to happen. That needs to happen for Michigan to take that next step, because they're not going to be able to play Hunter and like Devontae, guys who are a little bit bigger, like all these minutes, because that's just going to wear them down, and they're not going to have anything when it comes time for like tournament time and the NCAAs and all that. So the bench has got to give us something. It's got to give us something.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And so everybody, that's going to be our show for today. Saturday night, a big one again against Ohio State at Chrysler. They're honoring Rudy T at halftime as well. We're going to actually get to talk to him before the game, so stay tuned for some content from a Michigan basketball legend there. Another Michigan basketball legend, Ant Wright. Appreciate you joining us here. Everyone go follow him, as I said, at It's Ant Wright on Twitter. He's got his streams. He's got all of his content as well. He's doing his stuff with us. He's also got his Fire hat on that he did a giveaway of the other day that I saw. So if you want to get a giveaway of some Fire Ant Wright gear, go and follow him over there as well. And he's about to show us something. That's
if
crispy.
You're a Lions fan, I got a Lions giveaway coming up probably sometime this week. So
Okay. So if you needed another reason to follow Ant Wright, there it is for the Lions fans out there that are a little sad / conflicted about the Super Bowl and Matt Stafford and all that. You could possibly win a hat. So go and do that, and we'll see everyone next time.